We're here at the McCoy Tree Farm. We're here with Dick McCoy. The McCoy Tree Farm is a town-owned conservation property that the town purchased in 2006 from Mr. McCoy. And we're here today because it's such a wonderful property. We want to share it with everybody, take you through a walk of the property, and Dick's going to tell us some stories about the history of the land, and we hope that you come walk the trails. So we're really happy to have Dick here, and he's got lots of things he's going to talk to us about.
Glad to have you aboard. And before we start our walk through the woods to explain things, I'd like to take you upstairs to show you a sign that was in front of this house in 1939. It's a for sale sign, but it's a big one, handmade. But on there it explains the property that you now own. So inside we go.
Okay, great.
This is the for sale sign, but on here it talks about 2 cranberry bogs. It's on the property, and in those days there was a livelihood for some people, and it was all done by hand, of course, and this is part of what the town just bought. The $2,500 was a lot of money, and my father only had $1,500 to offer for the property. So what he did, he went to the bank and got 15 $100 bills, all brand new, crisp dollar bills. Believe me, in 1939, no one had ever seen a $100 bill. So we went to the bank. I was an 8-year-old kid for the closing. My father said, "I'm sorry, I don't have the $2,500, but I do have this money." And they counted out one at a time till they got to 15, and he said, "That's all I have." There were 2 brothers there who inherited the land. One brother picked up half the money and left, and the other brother says, "Well, I guess we have a deal." And that's how the McCoys bought the property. This is our first grove in here. You see how tall the trees are and how big the trees are. That tree in there, I can't put my arms around. It's so big. Now, it's pretty thin in here, as you can see. And the reason for that is we took out the older trees by girdling them. These we saw in 1 inch all the way around the tree, kills the tree, because the tree is fed on the outside, up and down. And there's a lot easier way to kill a tree than cutting it down. As soon as you girdle it, it stops taking nutrients out of the soil and fighting with the good trees. So that's why they girdle. And you see behind us, in time, they fall over. But you can see the girdle marks on that tree.
Yeah, in the meantime, they serve great wildlife habitat.
You bet. The woodpeckers love them.
Yeah, that's a great example
right there, right behind you. See all the holes from the woodpeckers.
And so this was a means for you to thin it out, as you said, so that you could favor the some of the trees, so that they had a better chance of growing straight.
That's correct.
Tall.
Yep. And I'll show you some other stands later, but under the program we had called Thin and Release. And you had to thin them horizontally and thin them vertically. And they wanted 16-foot boards free of knots. So you turn around, you can see how they're all pruned up at least 16 feet. And the reason for that is you want to go 17 feet, so it leaves them a foot to plane or to square off the tree. And the idea is when you limb them up, there's fewer knots. So it's a better piece of lumber, is the idea. So that's what we did in the early years. These were planted here about 1950.
And again, the whole purpose was a forestry management plan is what you had in place, right?
In the beginning, it's just because my dad liked forestry. He called the state forester, he'd come down. We bought the trees from the state nursery. The state nursery was in Bridgewater. And believe it or not, we paid a penny a piece for the seedlings. And I'm getting a little bit of the history, might as well do it now. For over a 30-year period, we planted in 20 of those years. In those 20 years, we planted 1,500 seedlings. And we always picked Easter weekend. Reason, we had the extra day, had Good Friday. So we'd come down Thursday night and work Friday, Saturday, and finish by noon Sunday. Now, because we didn't live on the Cape, we had to come off the Cape. We would shine. They didn't like it, but we'd work for an hour, go back to the house, take off all our clothes, hang them up to dry, and plant some more. And that's what we did for 20 years, 1,500 seedlings. And here again, the mortality rate is better than 90%. You won't see many dead ones around. So onward. Now you thought I was kidding. I can't get around it. You see my hands? Here's a good example behind you of the vernal pool. And Krisin can tell you more about vernal pools than I can. But it's a good example of one.
It is. Yep, it's a great little wetland. It's an extra added...
Which means you can have water one year and dry the next. Have I got that right?
Right.
Because I got pictures taken several years ago when it was dry. We couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's an isolated wetland. There's no inlet or outlet as far as a stream or anything, and so it really benefits things like spotted salamanders and wood frogs.
And it's all because of a glacier, right? Backing out of here. Yep. The space between these limbs is the growth in a given year. So you can count the spaces between each limb, will tell you the age of a tree. Now, next thing you can do is see the amount of space between each. Now, if you count down 1, 2, 3, 3 was a bad year. It didn't grow only this much. 4, 5 is a better year. Okay? Go to the next tree. What was it? 3 and 5? 1, 2. See, 3 is a good year. 4, 5 wasn't so good. Also, it's a good example here of the weevil. A weevil comes in the leader and kills the leader. Now, it won't kill the tree, but it'll cause it to go round. What happens is down here, as you can see, this got killed. And then a new leader came up out of here, growing up. So you get a tree that's stunted as it grows up because of the weevil. Not much you can do about it. 1, 2, 3. Now see over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th year, it was lousy. 5th year was great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not so good in this one. So I asked the forester, I said, why is it different from trees? He said, they're just like kids. No two kids are alike. And no two trees are alike, was the answer I got. We were told by the forester years ago that this knoll here had the tallest natural pines on the Cape. It made a good story. There's not many around this large, but behind you is one of the ones that were that high. And the one leaning over there is another one. Right there. The original pines. We've lost a lot since hurricanes, gales, whatever. But all the white pine out here, we planted. And here again, the size of it. You know, you can't get your arms around it. They're a lot bigger than you think. The forester said, put spruces in here instead of white pine. If you look behind you, all over here, there's a big Norway spruce grove. Look at the height of them. 60 feet anyway.
I think everybody who's visited here always thinks, I can't believe this is Chatham because of the size of the trees.
That's right. And we never made any noise that we're here either. It's just our nature. We just came down, did our thing and left. And they're very happy. Today, look at them. Size of them. You see both ponds. I call it both ponds. Today it's known as Mill Pond, but the old days, there were two ponds here. Mill Pond here, and that was called Young's Pond. Now, we came across a map, 1928, that showed two ponds, but only showed one name. So I don't know how far back Young's Pond goes, but to the point where it's two ponds, to get power to the property across the way, T.W. Nickerson's place, the power lines came from Queen Anne Road through our property here. There's a point down here, cross the point between the two ponds to get to their property. So somewhere along the line, when those poles were put in, that was dry land going across, separating the two ponds. Today, it's still very, very shallow. And turtles love it. They come out of the water there and sun themselves up there in what we call the Narrows. And here again you can see the good year versus the bad year. See, that's a good year in here and a bad year. See here? Good year. See the space? That's the growth per year. Let's see, some of these guys are tough going. Now that little baby is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. It's only 2 feet.
A little too much
It's barely alive. There's no two trees alike.
Yep.
You take the ones over there, do much better. Same exposure, but once in a while you get one that doesn't do as well. This is where your second cranberry bog was, out here. And what was all done by hand, and behind us here, is a pit. It was dug out by hand, sand put out in the pond. That's how they made a bog. But just imagine all this dug out by hand. Wheelbarrow, that's it. On planks, going out to the water. So when we bought it, we actually had berries out there. Not many, but berries. So my dad hired a local fella in the wintertime we weren't here to add sand out there to put a bog in. And this was before any licensing, no permits. It was already there, we just did it. And it turns out it didn't work. Had a big storm where the water would rise. The water height is controlled by a dike down at the other end. because of the bogs, Minister's Pond
Yes.
stuff was controlled by the water out of here. And you take out the boards in the dike and let the water out to flood the bogs down below. When they were flooded, you put the boards back in, and the water came up here. Now, if you had a lot of rain, it came up and it flooded this. So that's what happened. Now, the dike's not working now because the kids have plugged it full of sand. So it's a steady height now, consistent height. Now, down here is the back end of the spruce trees I pointed out when we came out here. So you plant them on top and all down in here. And out of here, 10 years ago, we took out a tree for the town use, the town in the square.
Oh, okay. For a Christmas tree?
Yeah, we took one out. The town truck came up here, back down the road. This is Partridge Lane.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay? Cut the tree, dragged us to the woods, put it on their trailer, and they took it downtown. Well, it's gonna be 20 years ago. It was one of these spruces. We've been planting for 35 years, roughly, during a 35-year period, of which we planted 20 years. Each year we planted was 1,500 trees. And we had, as the picture shows, we had 2 crews. The number 1 person in each crew had the spade. Put a spade in the ground, worked it back. You created an X in the ground from doing that. Second person came by and knocked the center out of the X. If you didn't, when you put the tree in, you have a pocket of air in there. Sides, you get a rectangular hole, and then the third person pounded it with their fist to set the tree, and the fourth came in and heeled it in. And then we went down through the woods. Steps, plant. 1, 2 steps, plant. That's what we did. In the beginning, 12 feet apart, and in the end, the forester said, that's shorten the distance. I want to force them up. So we'll go 6 feet. So that's what we did toward the end. And then the idea was, when they start growing, you cut out every other one. And that was 12 feet, let them go. And the thinning releasing. That was the theory. So that's what we did.
So the total number of trees, what?
About 30,000.
30,000, amazing.
And here again, the mortality, you don't see many dead ones. It's better than 90%. If it was less than that, we probably wouldn't have done it. It'd be a waste of time and effort, but as you can see, look around, they made it. Yeah. All right, we're going down the hill here.
Okay.
But the vernal pool, the bog, was right down here.
Yep.
And what they did, they dug the sand out of the banks and just went out into the vernal pool. But likewise, they couldn't regulate the water. So if you had dry years, no cranberries. Now, top of this hill here is the official entrance to the McCoy Tree Farm on Old Queen Anne Road. And you walk right down this hill. I could drive up that hill in my Chevy. Okay, now we're going to walk along the edge of the vernal pool.
There are 2 marked trails here on the property, and as Dick says, when you park up on Old Queen Anne Road, where the trailhead is and the sign for the property, you come down this sloping piece of land, and here's the fork in the road. There's some markers there. The red marker will take you down. Follow that red markers, and they'll take you down to the Mill Pond property where we were just at, that portion of the property, and then the blue trail takes you around the wetland.
It takes around all the way around this. Okay. That white pine right there gets the blue ribbon. That is original, my friends. Look at the size. Yes, sir. And look at the size of it. dead here among us. And I think the reason why it survived, because it's fairly protected down here. It's lowland and away from it's protected from the winds.
And it's got moisture when it wants it, right next, close to the wetland there.
Amen. Amen. It's very happy there. Now the forester used to bring students down here. Of course, the forester being in Miles Standish, Plymouth, would bring them down here to this property to tell them it was the only tree farm on the Cape. I think there's one more in Bourne. But to tell people, believe it or not, trees grow in sand because we don't have much nutrition in these soils. But there's enough for the trees. And no one will believe it till you bring them down to look at them. They're not as big as this guy, right. But this guy's also a couple of 100 years old. These are only 50. Most of the property is white pine, some red pine that died. And then we have hemlock right here that we put around the pond. And they grew for a while, as you can see, did very well. But likewise, a virus got them. I don't know if that's true in the Cape or not, but it was here with the hemlock. But see, they did all right for a while. But bingo. See some of the pine cones we were talking about, see them? Seeds all gone?
Probably.
Yeah. Squirrels get the seeds. You get a good view of the thinner release that we did through here. Like I said, it took all one winter to do it all. Well, don't forget now, at the turn of the century, there weren't any trees here. Very few. I could see, from my top floor of the house, my bedroom, I could see the pond, believe it or not. Everything's grown up since. If you look at the old pictures of the Cape, there were no trees. They're all taken down for building or fuel, whatever. Been asked about a fire. And of course, we all dread fires, especially in the woods, get away from you. 20 years ago, thereabouts, I've been here for 30 now, since I retired. We went to the beach. It was a lousy beach day, it was foggy. Came home about 1 o'clock, there was a fire truck in the yard. And I said, oh my, first thought was the house is on fire. Got out of the car, he says, no, you smoke coming from the woods. There was a south wind blowing, thick smoke across the road. And that's why it got reported, because of the smoke, thick smoke. And he said, we don't know how to get down there. I said, can I hop aboard your fire truck? Sure. I said, come on, I'll take you. So I took him down to the woods that I drove on for years and got to the fire. It was down on the water on the shore. Mm-hmm. And it was smoldering underneath the pine cones.
Oh, sure.
Well, not pine cones, but
underneath the needles.
Underneath the needles and the leaves and whatever. And thank goodness they had the pond right there. They could pump water on it and put it out. The fire chief, whose name I can't remember so long ago, said, you know, if we waited another 20 minutes, it would have gotten way out of hand because the wind was blowing so hard. Mm-hmm. And we got there just in time before it really broke out.
Wow.
Man was really lucky. We think it was caused by a cigarette. Stepped on but never put out, and it spread. And luck of the draw, I came home when I did to help the firemen get down there. Then the irony of it was, he said, now this could smolder for 2 or 3 days. Would you mind keeping your eye on it? I kid you not. So I went down every day, step on little pieces that were still smoking. But that was the fire we did have. And very conscious of fires. So that's why when you folks bought the property, we want to make sure that the fire truck had access.
Yeah.
And then of course for this now here, and with the road a lot better off. And there's a hydrant also right up there across the street.